Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Call it tournant. I'm not even sure what the English word, but you do tours overseas. So in Africa, typically. When I was there, the guys were just coming back from the Balkans, but you're always heading over to either Chad, Central Africa, or if things are heating up in any of the French influences, you would be potentially going there. But I was after about 10 months, we were supposed to go to Gabon, France, or Africa, and I was doing I was running. I could run. You know, I think when I joined the Legion, I was probably I played hockey. So I was kind of a heavier set kid, maybe ate a couple too many burgers. And I lost a good 25 pounds from basic. So I could run, I could run. So I did all right running, and they put me in these running things with some of the other NCOs and corporal. And one day when we were done the race, my sergeant said to me, "Why don't you try out for the GCP?" And I had seen the GCP at the when we were jumping, and they had showed up in this truck, and they're all wearing jumpsuits, and it was a mixed match of corporals, corporal chefs, sergeants, and the officers. But they were free fall, right? So they were just more relaxed. And I remember asking my corporal, I was during the promo actually, who is that? And he said, it's the GCP. So I was aware of who they were, but I was obviously focused on just not fucking up and getting my job done at the first company. So I didn't really understand the dynamics behind who they are, what they do, and how do you get there. And so I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, you can volunteer to do selection. And if the lieutenant signs off on it, you go, you do selection. If they take you, they take you." So I passed in front of my lieutenant, and I asked for approval to do selection. And there was actually in our company, there was an individual who was he's actually Rhodesian, Graham Pelham, and he had left the first company and gone to the GCP, and he had a great name in the company, and I actually I think it was Rake took me to see Pelham at the GCP, and Pelham was just finishing I think his 5th year, and he was actually going to go home. He was done, and he gave me some advice, and he said, "You know what? If you can get anywhere in the rep, come to the GCP. It's the place. It'll be a lot more enjoyable." So I took his advice, and I went in front of the lieutenant, and I asked for permission to do selection, and then he approved. I went to our company captain, who had formerly been the captain of the GCP. He approved it. I did selection, and I was fortunate enough to get through. And at that point, I had a year and 10 months service. So the minimum rank in the GCP. So what the GCP is, the group Commando Parachute. So what they are is each airborne regiment in the French military has a GCP team. They actually might have 2 or 3, but it's a 10-man Halo freefall team. And they act in 2 components. They're either the pathfinders for the regiment, or what they do is they form the GCP group, so they can work together, all the different GCP groups within the GCP teams within the group, and they support the CUS, which is the French Special Operations Command. So it's 2nd tier SF. So you're either supporting your regiment, or you're working with a group supporting the CUS for whatever tasking they have set for you. And minimum rank is corporal. So they sent me on my corporal's course at that point, and off I went back to Castell. And I think I mentioned in the book, I contemplated throwing myself from the train, but it would have messed up the uniform.
So so what was the corporal course like when you went there? Was it any different than the first time you were there?
Yeah. I had asked some of the guys what to expect, and one of them had said that there's the adjutant that runs one of the platoons, Adjutant Madureira, a Portuguese guy. And he said he's an absolute lunatic. If you don't get him, you're good to go. So I showed up, and on the board, I was under Madureira's peloton. So the first thing you had to do was go into his office and present yourself. So in the Legion system, you knock at the door and you ask for permission to enter. They say enter. You go in, you take your kepi off, and you present yourself. So it's typically, you know, your rank, name, when you join, company, section, all that kind of stuff. There's a whole spiel. Anyway, I totally fucked mine up, and he yelled at me and said, "Go out!" You know, do it again. So I had to go out, knock on the door, permission, enter. I did it again, and I screwed it up again. And he looked at the sergeant beside him and said, "Look at his dossier. Does it say he's a retard?" And I know that's probably politically incorrect to say these days, but he said it, so it's not on me. But that was the start to my my sergeant or my corporal's course. Anyways, he was an absolute lunatic. Majuraira, in all due respect, he was good at what he did. He was excellent at getting people to do things that they didn't want to do and smile while they're doing it. But he had done the Manhouse Commando course in Brazil, and I think it tweaked off some things in the upper echelon of his brain, and basically he was always in the jungles of Manhouse in the jungle.
You talk about that a little bit in your book, that they went through a really heavy SEER course or prisoner course.
Yeah, I think it was known for its tough prisoner of war phase where it broke a lot, but he obviously enjoyed the shit out of it. But we were always in some sort of Manhouse Commando course setting. But he ran a tight ship. It was 2 months of range work, and what they're doing basically is they're teaching how to be a corporal in a combat company. So they're basically treating you like the worst legionnaires out there. So your weapons are never clean. Your room is always a shit state. You suck on the range. You don't know how to do anything map and compass. Your drill is atrocious, and so they're always just beasting you, trying to, and then getting you to work together. So it was actually, it sucked, but it was, at the end of it, we were proud of, and I had fortunately I was able to finish first. And like most courses in the Legion, a lot of the points given for the final tally is based on physical ability. So I was able to run and do the core and all that stuff. So I was able to get maximum points, because I'm sure I didn't do very well on the actual, the written stuff. But I remember I mentioned the book is in the final parade, the top finish, you bring the section to attention, you turn them, and then you march them off the parade square in song. And so I finished first, and there's my driver there, obviously the company captain, the CEO of the regiment, and the guests and stuff. And I give the drill command to turn right, which should have been left. So now everyone's turned the wrong way. And I can see in my peripheral vision, my Jiraiya puts his hand on his like this, and then I'm all flustered. So I get the guys going the right way. Half of them are laughing, right? And then we march off, and I forget to make them sing. And then I could just hear my Jiraiya yell from the background, "The fucking song," So it was, it ended well, and it was a good experience. But they definitely beast you, as they do.
Now, did they pin you at that point? Are you promotable, or how, were you automatically corporal?
I don't get my rank. So I was lucky when I get back to Calvi, the GCP. Calvi is the town where the rep is based. Named actually after Christopher Columbus. Calvi is his middle name. That's where he was born. But the GCP is in Bungi, Central Africa. There's been an uprising within the South Africa or the Central African Army, and the French are there, and our team is there with a company from the rep, and then the COS is there. And so when I get back to Calvi, I'm given the message that I'm going to be flying to join them in Bungi, albeit I'm not GCP qualified yet. In order to be a qualified commando in the GCP, you have to have your level 2 commando course, and then your free fall course, and then you're considered a qualified GCP team member. So I had none of those. I had obviously just done my. So I fly into Bungi, and we spent 3 months there during that. And I got my rank when I was there. So it was given to me a couple of months later.
So tell us a little tell us about Bungi. What was going on there?
It was within the Central African Army, there was an uprising. So it's very, like most African, it's very tribal. And there was basically the capital, Bangui, had been split in half. So the half of the Central African Army had kept one part of the city, and then the pro-government forces, considered the good guys, had kept the other half. And the French have a base there. They certainly have, a commitment to assist the Central African. I mean, they have their independence, but the French are just there to kind of help and obviously do what they do, but they weren't involved per se. They were there to maintain order within their own interests, but also there's a large expat community in the city, mining, oil and gas, that kind of stuff. In the event of a major uprising, they would be there to support or evacuate the expatriates, be it French, American, British, whatever.
And this is a former French territory, I take it.
You betcha. Yeah. So things were heating up, and one of the guys in the team was going off to do his course. So I was just flown in to be a replacement. So we flew in. It was a DC-9, and we landed in Bangui, the airport, and the door opened up, and it was my captain, Captain Morar. And I was the only one to get off. The aircraft was going off onto Chad. Everyone else in the plane was going to Chad. I was the only one to get off. So I had my dress uniform on, my kepi, my backpack, and I go down the stairs, and the airport was all black. There's a VAB, which is their armored vehicle with 20 millimeter cannon driving, a loose circuit around the DC-9. And, there's tracers going off in the distance and the odd mortar thump, and then just the smell of rotten vegetation and garbage and the heat of Africa. And that was my introduction to, and I just remember all my senses were just all over the place, and yeah, it was a neat feeling. It was exciting. I remember that to this day. It was just that here I am, I'm a young soldier. I've never been in a conflict area, and just the atmosphere was very different. But at the same time, I do recall I was more anxious at the fact that I'm the new guy. I'm joining a team that's been working together. They're all obviously members, and I'm the new guy. I don't have the courses, so I got to watch my back, right? So the captain basically, so I get off the plane, and the guys are all there in the back of the Velara, which is a truck. It's kind of an open truck, and they're all in their combat gear, and there I am with my kepi, and I just felt super out of place. And anyway, they take me back to our camp, and then the captain just basically pulled me aside, said, "Listen, you're here. It is what it is. Just watch and learn." And yeah.
Was the team, I mean, not only were you not qualified, but you're also sort of a junior ranked guy at this time with not a lot of time in.
Yep.
How did they treat you? Did they accept you? Did they kind of try to train you up? Did they guide you?
Well, part of selection, I think selection was, for me, it lasted 3 weeks, and it's typically a month, the selection phase. And what they do in the GCP selection phase is once you've gone through all the physical tests, the range tests, all that kind of stuff, they will throw you into the team in exercises, training. You'll go into onto the range with them. You'll do house clearing. You'll do some rappelling. And they're trying to see whether or not you have also obviously the abilities, but do you mix within the team? Do you have the personality? Are you able to pick up what they're teaching you? That was a big one. So they're teaching you their tools of the trade per se, and are you able to jive with the team you have the right? So at that point, a lot of the guys I knew from selection, albeit short, but they knew who I was. So I think, I don't know, but I made the team, so I must have done something right. So I was accepted, and they knew, my personal, I wasn't gobby. I'm not a huge talker. So I just kind of shut my mouth. There was 2 Anglophones. There was Corporal Brooke and Corporal Chef McGuire. And they basically took me to the side and said, "Hey, here's the deal. This is what you got to do." I got myself into shit right away with a French sergeant. I didn't present myself as you're supposed to. And it was a difference between a combat company and the GCP, where you don't talk to a sergeant in a combat company unless he approaches you, and then you do. But there I should have shown up and presented myself to all the NCOs, and I didn't. So I was right away, I was in the shit. So they kind of took me to them and say, "Hey, Struthers, we get it. These are the rules. This is how you."